knows? I need my reading glasses. Yeah. My name's Liz Hodgkinson. I'm the author of Daddy's official biography, authorised biography, I should say. You can see for yourself, Daddy has met all sorts of famous people from all over the world, from rock stars to royalty, to heads of state, to spiritual leaders, to kings and queens, to influential and powerful people, men and women from all over the world. We saw her with Mother Teresa, the Pope, Robin Gibb, huge variety of people. And fatefully, Daddy has also met me. And I just want to share, for people who may not know the backstory, how I came to meet Daddy and how it all happened in the first place, how I came to write this book, how I came to know Daddy, and how I came to appreciate exactly what she's achieved and how she's managed to do it in the face of quite a lot of challenges and adversity, which you wouldn't guess to see her ever smiling. But anyway, it was in 1981. I was a young journalist, well, not that young, but youngish, and I was writing for a lot of newspapers and magazines at the time, including a very avant-garde magazine at the time called She. And I had been commissioned by She magazine to write an article about the Brahma Kumaris, and the interest for this women's magazine was that uniquely as far as I knew at the time, it was the only spiritual organization of any size or influence that was actually run by women. And because most spiritual and religious organizations have got men at their head, obviously this was something very different. And so I went along with my notebook to a little house that they had in Kew, which was near where I lived in Richmond at the time, and did the interview. As far as I was concerned, that was that. Well, 35 years later, I'm still not only in touch, but also I can say that I think from that first time that I didn't meet Dadi Janki on that particular occasion. Genti was there, and one or two other sisters, and I thought there's something very, very special about these people. I didn't really know who they were. I didn't know anything about them. I didn't know anything about the beliefs or the knowledge or any history, but I just felt there was something very, very special. And Genti asked if we would like to take, and my then husband Neville, who has been a BK himself for many years, he was with me for the interview, which normally wouldn't happen, but he came along, and Genti asked if we'd like to take the 7-day course. Well, life was never the same again. Never, I can say that, never the same again. Everything changed. And I didn't become a BK myself, but I remained close and I remained very supportive because I liked what they were doing and I liked what they were trying to achieve. This evening, I'm going to try to ask Dadi Janki, because I've spent the last 18 months studying Dadi Janki and trying to find out where she's come from, how she did it, and what are the secrets of starting an organization in the West from scratch. Because when she came to London in the mid-1970s, there was no BK movement, there were no centres, there was absolutely nothing. Now look at it. Beautiful halls all over the world, wonderful centres, many, many people very supportive, centres all over the world. A lot of that has been through the vision and courage and determination of this little lady here who seems just to smile at people, but inside there's always a lot going on. So the first question I'd like to ask Dadi Janki now, when she came to London, a cold, grey country she'd never visited before, did she, in her wildest dreams, ever think that in 2016 that this would have been achieved, that the beautiful halls, the beautiful centres, the influence that the Brahma Kumaris has had all over the country, the fact, and all over many other countries, the fact that there is a presence in, I would say, virtually every country now in the world, and including the Middle East, which is, as you know, not a very easy region for people of a Hindu faith to penetrate, but she's even managed the Middle East. And so, first question I'd like to ask Dadi is, did she ever imagine that she would sit here, 100 years old, and see this?
You want an answer?
Well, that's why I asked the question, yes.
आपको पता होगा, इतना पता तुमने रखा है जो मैं देख रही हूँ.
I see that you know a lot about me.
मैं कहेंगे कमाल उस बाप की है.
I would say it's the wonder of
जिसने ये
that
सब
father.
ये खेल चल रहा है.
And so he created this whole game. I'm seeing this
उसमें
whole
मैं
game.
तुम्हारे साथ फ्रेंडली होकर के रहूं, ये तो नई बात है, मेरे लिए तो नई बात.
And it was a new thing for me to have friendship with you.
परंतु मुझे बाबा ने कहा था, तुम सिर्फ शांत रहो, खुश रहो.
But Baba had told me many years ago, just remain peaceful and just remain
अचानक
happy.
ही पता नहीं किसने मेरा फोटो निकाला. ये
Somebody took a photograph of me with my hand raised in this way.
वो मेरे सिटिंग रूम में रखा है.
Daddy's got
But
that
जो
photo
भी
in
देखता है
India
ना,
in her sitting room.
ये सिर्फ न्यारा बन के परमात्मा सर्वशक्तिवान से क्या क्या सेवाएं हुई है, उनके द्वारा हुई है, निमित्त बनाया है.
Yes.
मेरे को अपना फ्रेंड बनाने के लिए मेरा वो फ्रेंड हो गया.
As a detached observer, I can say that he's the one, the Almighty, who made so much happen, but it's my good fortune that he made me an instrument, and in the process of making me an instrument, he also made me his friend.
ये सीक्रेट बताते हो.
This is the secret.
This,
उसको
well, this
वो
is
जो
the,
है ना ऊपर वाला,
The one
ऊपर
above,
वाला, वो अपन को न्यारा रखता है.
he keeps himself detached.
पर तो मेरे जैसे भोले उसको अपना बना करके ये सब खेल रचा है.
And he made innocent one like me become his instrument and did all of this, made this game happen.
that's wonderful, yes. I'm sure that God did look down on Dadi Janki and say, this is the ideal instrument. But even so, even when you choose an instrument, as the BKs call these people who they feel are chosen by God, you've still got to work hard. And as far as I was concerned, in the 1970s, very different society from how it is today. The next question I want to ask Dadi is how she managed to attract Westerners, people who were not of a Hindu or Indian background, and for whom the ideas that the Brahma Kumaris were talking about at the time were very, very new. Most of us had never heard of karma. we use the word all the time now, bad karma. It entered the language. In the 1970s, it was a word that very few people had even heard of. We didn't really know anything about reincarnation. We knew it was a strange Eastern belief, but as far as Westerners were concerned, we didn't really know anything about it. We didn't know anything about the teachings. Christianity, Judaism, the Western religions are very, very different. So the next question I'd like to ask Dadi is how she managed to cross the barrier between coming into the country as a already fairly elderly Indian lady. Never, I believe I'm right, she'd never even met a Westerner before, let alone been to the West. What was the secret, what was the magic, what was the trick by which she began to attract Westerners, English people, Australian people, American people, to the initial meetings of the Brahma Kumaris, some of whom, and I can see one in the audience now, some of whom were very, very early people who came along and are still, have now become pillars of the organisation. So what was the magic by which she crossed that cultural and religious and spiritual barrier?
Ben.
Sister. Good
मैं भी साखी होकर के साखी माना ही क्या है?
As a detached observer, what does it mean to be a detached observer?
नॉलेज का सार है.
There's
ये हर आत्मा है. परमात्मा सर्वशक्तिवान है.
There's the understanding that the essence of knowledge is that each and everyone is a soul and
तो
all the children of the one.
मेरे दिल के अंदर ये भावना जैसे भगवान ने मुझे जीवन की वैल्यू का अनुभव कराया है, ऐसे सब करे, ये संकल्प साकार हो गया.
The deep feeling was that just as God has made me realize the value of human life, I would like each and everyone to experience the value of their own life. And that one thought has taken practical shape.
आपको कभी ये सपना था तो आप मेरी फ्रेंड बनेगी, ऐसे सभा में हाजिर होंगे?
Did you ever dream that you would become a friend with someone like me and be in such a gathering?
तेरा ही मिसाल है, ऐसे अनेकों का मिसाल है.
You're an example, and so there's many other examples.
कहाँ भी मिले, मुस्कुराया.
Whatever was the reason that brought us together, we would meet with a smile.
ये मुस्कुराहट मनुष्य में नवीनता लाता है.
Just a smile is able to bring newness in life.
पुरानी बात सुनना बोलना लाइफ की वैल्यू नहीं है.
When I listen to old stories, when I listen to things of other people, it takes away the value of my own life.
Detached and loving nature. ठीक है? मैं दोनों इंग्लिश करना.
Okay, so both are English words, detached and
loving nature.
Be detached but have a loving nature.
Dadi asked if, threw my own question back at me, to ask if I imagined that I would be sitting here 35 years later talking to Dadi on this platform, and of course the answer has to be no. But what I would say is that I did have the very strong feeling when we first met at that little house in Kew that life would never be the same again. And I'm saying that from somebody who had spent a little time earlier investigating some of the Eastern movements that were beginning to take hold in the West, and I didn't like any of them. They didn't speak to me, they didn't resonate with me. But when I went to, and as I said, I didn't meet Dadi first of all, I only met her later, but I did have that very strong feeling that life would never be the same again. In that I was proved right. But I also, this really brings me on to my next question, or the next topic that I'd like to Dadi to talk about. How much does she think that for the earliest Westerners who came, who were all very young at the time, and several of them were wandering hippies, squatters, not influential people, just young people backpacking in those days, and now, of course, they're in their 60s and running countries, some of them. How much did Dadi think that it was the strength of the vibrations which attracted the earliest Westerners to the Brahma Kumaris, and how much does she think it possibly was the secret of the attraction to myself and to Neville, who was... Well, he picked up the vibrations much quicker than I did, but I picked up the knowledge quicker than he did. So, so we completed each other, if you like. So, just to repeat that, how much does Dadi think it was the actual vibrations that were powerful, rather than from what anything was actually being said?
मीठी बहन, मैं मीठी बहन कहती हूँ.
Sweet sister.
मेरे साथ ऐसा सेवा साथी मिले, ये किसकी लीला उसकी.
I found
उसने तेरे को टच किया है.
I found wonderful service companions like you, and it was
उसकी
his
ऊपर वाली
touching.
टचिंग ने तुमको शक्ति दी है सारी सब बातें मेरे से इंटरव्यू लेना.
And it's surely his power that's giving you the strength to be able to interview me in front of this gallery now.
ये भी प्रभु लीला जो इंग्लिश बहन कोई भारतवासी ने भी कभी मेरे से ऐसे लेन देन नहीं किया.
It's amazing that an English sister should be questioning me in this way. I don't remember an Indian sister questioning me like this.
Well, I think that just to put it into a personal perspective, and this will bring me on to my next question, all of the other Indian movements and groups that I investigated or maybe spent an evening with every single one, it was a male guru, a man at the head, and very often a very charismatic, educated Indian as well. And before long, in the 1960s and 70s, when a lot of Indian gurus came over to the West, they started off by being quite poor and just having very ordinary premises. But before long, the gurus themselves became rich and famous, and they, you've all heard of the Maharishi, who the Beatles followed, and they became very kind of pleased with themselves, if you like, with wearing robes and living in very expensive places, driving very expensive cars. This has never happened with the Brahma Kumaris, and that is, to me, one of the main attractions. But that's not all. I think at the heart of it, what I'd really like to ask Dadi is how much does she think the fact that this organisation, movement, whatever you like to call it, has always been led by women, has women at the head, how much difference does she think this has made in attracting people to the organisation, and how much difference has it made to the way the organisation has grown?
स्थूल में देखा जाए भाइयों का जो फोर्स होता है,
on the external level, brothers, men have a lot of force, and they they suppress women with that.
बाबा ने ऐसी शक्ति दी जो हमारे भाई लोग, हमने भाई समझा है,
but
हर एक भाई को
But God gave women so much inner strength that we were able to see
शुरू
men
में
as our brothers.
शुरू में जब हम यहाँ आई तो पहला स्टूडेंट डेनिस निकली है
When I
डेनिस
first
खड़ी
came
हो जा
here, Denise Ben was the first
पहला
student.
स्टूडेंट है इसने इसने कोर्स करते जयंती कोर्स करा रही थी तो इसके दिल में था मैं जयंती जैसी बन जाऊं फट से चेंज हो गई ड्रेस चेंज किया सब कुछ चेंज किया घर भी चेंज कर दिया
Even as she was taking the course, she was very inspired and she wanted to have a life like this. And so she changed everything very, very quickly. Her dress, her home, her lifestyle.
इतनी ऐसे अंदर ही अंदर पुरुषार्थ ऐसा करती रही तो जयंती अचानक प्रोग्राम बना करेबन में जाने का ये करेबन में सेवा ये शुरू करने चली गई ये ऐसा बड़ी शशि भी थी परंतु इंग्लिश बैन ये और वादी अमेरिका में बैठी है ये यहाँ बैठी है ये चारों ओर सेवा करे जो पहले सारे विश्व में चक्कर लगाने का सेवा करने का पता नहीं कैसे कैसे प्रोग्राम बनता रहा
Daddy sent me to the Caribbean and Sister Denise was here, then she was helping Daddy. Then Sister Wadi came along, so she's serving in America and Denise been here, so she travels the world serving. And so there have been amazing instruments who've been serving all around and it's incredible how it's all happened.
It's incredible, but I think Daddy must have had a gift of picking people or have seeing something in these early people who came to the centre, which was not really a very nice centre in those days, just two little dark rooms in a basement in London. She must have seen something in these people that maybe they didn't see themselves, because what she has done, and I know this from interviewing a lot of people for the book, both in people from an Indian background and from a Western background, that Daddy somehow saw something in them that they hadn't seen themselves and gave them the courage to do things they would never have thought were possible. And although Daddy always deflects any praise away from herself and says that it's all to do with God, my feeling on having researched the book and talked to a lot of people over the last year or so is that Daddy has a unique gift for picking the right people and sending them to the right places. Maybe Daddy would like to comment on that and give us a little bit more enlightenment on how she manages to choose the right people.
बहन कहती हूँ तुमको कशिश होती है
When I say my sister, do you feel that power?
The thing is that I just can't sort of refuse Daddy. That's the problem, and I just wonder whether other people have that feeling, and if there's some kind of, I don't know, some kind of hypnosis.
सुन मेरी अभी तुम्हारे ये कौन सी शक्ति तुम्हारे ऊपर काम कर रही है जो तुम्हारे अंदर ऐसे क्वेश्चन सभा के बीच में पूछने का
There's definitely a special power that's working on you that's making you ask these very interesting questions.
कई भाई बहन ऐसे बैठे हैं जिसको मुझे बड़ी खुशी हो रही है तुम ही बाप को प्रत्यक्ष करने के निमित्त बनी हो और मेरे को कहते तू रेस्ट कर.
It's wonderful that you're an instrument to reveal God and you're now letting me rest. Rest is best.
The other thing that struck me when I was researching the book is that although Daddy came from a very traditional background, an Indian background, and had no real contact with the West until she came here. In very many ways, she was ahead of her time. And I have picked up quite a lot of things where Daddy led the way. Firstly, women being spiritual leaders. When Daddy came here in the 1970s, we may forget now, but in Christianity, there were no women vicars or priests. It was not allowed by law. There were no women Jewish rabbis. I believe, I'm not absolutely 100%, but I believe also it was not allowed by law. And yet there were several Indian ladies at the time leading spiritual gatherings, which had not happened in the West, which was everybody thought was ahead of India, that India was more backward than the West and that we were more advanced. Now, of course, there are many women priests and vicars and even bishops in Christianity. I think there are almost at the sort of entry level more rabbis, women rabbis, than men. But that's new, and Daddy led the way, but it wasn't just in the spiritual or the overtly spiritual sense where Daddy led the way. She also led the way having your rooms painted white. I don't know whether everyone remembers the 70s. It was all orange and brown, psychedelic colours and patterns everywhere. That was how it was in the 70s. And Daddy started paint. Now, everybody's got white rooms. I've got a completely white flat. Daddy was there before anyone else. And even down to things like this, there was a lot of attention paid to detail. Another area where Daddy was there before anyone else is decluttering. We've all heard of decluttering now. You can hire a professional declutterer to come and declutter your home. It's true. Daddy would never need a professional declutterer because her homes and spaces were never cluttered. And this is another way, in my view, that Daddy has led the way, that she said that your space, your home, must always be welcoming and free of clutter. Whoever you welcome, whether it's the highest or the lowest, it must always be ready, clean and smart to welcome people. Daddy was there 20 or 30 years before anyone's caught up with it. Now people are making money out of all these things. So what I wanted to say is that Daddy was she was so ahead of her time in so many ways and didn't let anything stop her. That's the thing I find most impressive, that she never gave up, she never worried about not having any money, never worried about big projects. She's always thought big, and that's really why these big centres have happened, because Daddy has thought big, while a lot of people just think small and think, oh, I'm nervous. I haven't got the money for that. I can't meet Prince Charles. I'll be too nervous. None of that seems to have ever entered Daddy's mind. So I just asked Daddy, does she ever get nervous or afraid?
मेरी बहन मेरा नाम नहीं लो, दादी दादी नहीं करो, तेरे को ये टचिंग कौन कर रहा है?
Okay, so dear sister, don't keep saying Dadi, 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 because it's definitely the one above who's inspiring you and making everything happen. Yesterday and today.
मैं सभा के बीच में बोलती हूँ, दिन में मेरी तबीयत ऐसी थी,
in the afternoon,
शाम को 6 बजे ठीक हुई है.
I had a lot of pain, physical pain, but by the evening, 6 o'clock, I was well.
ये सब परमात्मा सर्वशक्तिवान है.
God is truly the Almighty Authority.
कितनी शक्ति दे करके
and He gives me
अपना
power.
नाम बाला कर रहा है. मेरा क्या है? मेरा नाम बाला नहीं.
He's revealing Himself. It's no glory of mine, but it's His glory.
Yes, well, I have to accept that. But of course, another thing about Dadi, which I've really learned since I've been researching the book about her, is that you might imagine, if you didn't know her, that someone who reaches the age of 100 has conquered so many different countries, travelled all over the world. Even last year, at the age of 99, she travelled to many countries. You'd imagine perhaps that somebody who has achieved all this has always been in extremely good health. In fact, the opposite is true. Dadi has suffered serious illness for most of her life, not all the time, but she's suffered bouts of very serious illness. And I think probably one of the greatest things she teaches us about health is the power of mind over matter. And so I'd like to ask Dadi if she'd like to comment on the power of mind. She said just now she was in a lot of pain this afternoon, but now, I don't know whether she's telling the truth, of course, but now she says it's gone, or at least it's gone enough for her to take this platform tonight. So, you know, there's a lot of illness around these days. There's a lot of emphasis on health. There's a lot of emphasis on medical treatments, medical intervention, and people are very worried about their health, especially as they get older. But how much a part does mind over matter play in continuing, maybe not always so much in good health, but in continuing to bounce back all the time from ill health?
मन को शक्ति भी आती है जब नहीं तो मन भगवान कहते हैं मन मेरे में लगा तो मन नहीं लगने देता है मन अपनी अपनी बातें करता है
God keeps telling us to stay focused on one, but the mind plays mischief and plays games.
ये 4 सब्जेक्ट है हमारे
We have 4
पढ़ाई में
subjects:
ज्ञान
knowledge,
योग
yoga,
धारणा
practical
सेवा
application, service.
ज्ञान माना
Knowledge means
मैं कौन मेरा कौन
to know
ये
who
अंगुली
I
है ना
am and who belongs to me.
मैं
The finger
आत्मा
points to
हूँ
the self, I'm a soul.
तो न देख दिखाई पड़ती है न संबंध दिखाई पड़ता
Then I'm not aware of the body
इतना
or physical relations
practical
in a very practical way.
फिर सबके साथ व्यवहार में आते ये भी ड्रामा है मैं कहती हूँ सभी शहरों में चाइना में जापान में इधर उधर अकेली अकेली ब्राजील में अकेली अकेली कैसे जाती थी
And it was a wonder.
अंदर आत्मा को परमात्मा की शक्ति कैसे मिल रही है उनसे वो सेवा हुई है और धारणा ये है वो तो दूसरी बात धारणा की सुनाती हूँ तभी सेवा हुई है.
And because the mind is linked with God, the soul was able to receive power with which to be able to travel far, far away on my own, Brazil, China, Japan, and so on. But it was that power that was helping. And there's another practical thing.
धारणा में हिम्मत.
And in practical life, I always maintained courage.
पता नहीं बहुत काम किया है हिम्मत से.
Courage has given a lot of help.
क्यों हिम्मत से बच्चे मदद दे बाप. ओ ये अनुभव है लाइफ में.
My life experiences that my courage brings help from the Father.
और सच्ची दिल है साहिब राजी है मेरे ऊपर.
And when the heart is honest, I know that the Lord is pleased with me.
न कभी नाराज होना न किसको नाराज करना.
And he says, never be displeased, but never cause displeasure.
कभी भी लिज नाराज होने से शक्ल ऐसी हो जाती है.
What happens to each one's
अभी
face if
सैकड़ों
they're
बैठे हैं
displeased?
और कोई प्रोग्राम में हजारों दिल्ली में हजारों के प्रोग्राम.
Here we see hundreds, and in Delhi I see thousands.
60,000 लोग थे.
In fact, at a recent program, there were 60,000
मुझे
people.
सच्ची दिल पर साहब राजी ऐसे बैठ जाती हूँ या खड़ी हो जाती हूँ.
And so whether I sit or whether I stand, it's in silence and
कभी
remembrance
आप
of
मुझे
God.
पेंसिल डायरी नहीं देखेंगे.
You wouldn't have seen me with a pencil and notebook in my hands.
Oh, unlike me.
जो मैं नोट्स लूँ.
I don't take notes.
मुझे क्या बोलना है कुछ.
I don't
तो
write
सुबह
notes
से.
about what I'm going to speak.
और तेरे मुख से निकला बुद्धि बेहद में है.
And you mentioned earlier that the intellect has been thinking big, unlimited.
कैसे बुद्धि भगवान बेहद में ले जाता है, जैसे खुद निर्वाण धाम परम धाम में रहते हुए सभी आत्माओं का कल्याण करने की.
Just as God is unlimited, He makes us unlimited. He stays up above in the land of nirvana, the land of silence, and yet His concern is to bring benefit and upliftment to all of us.
चाहता है दुनिया में विकारों के कारण दुख बहुत है. विकार पांचों विकार है ना, काम क्रोध लोभ मोह अहंकार, इसी कारण दुख है.
And He tells us that the cause of sorrow is lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego.
पहले मैं बैठ के पहले बनाना सीखा.
When in the early days in India, sisters would surrender, one of the first things I would do was to teach them simplicity in hairstyles.
और मोरन को सदाई मोरन ने कभी ड्रेस चेंज नहीं किया. पता भी नहीं है डेविड इसका हस्बैंड है.
Maureen also has been always simple since the day she came and detached from her husband.
How to live simply means that you don't have so many. You just don't accumulate so many possessions. You don't even want them. And in fact, that's something that Daddy taught me, that I don't need to accumulate lots of possessions. Then they're not really going to enhance my life. And every time I move, I've got to take them with me, or sell them, or decide what to do with them. And now people are very much coming round to that way of thinking, and that we've actually, most of us, at least in the West, we've got far too many possessions, and we hoard them and we collect them. These are things that Daddy has never done. So she's shown us how to live simply, but always, and I think to me this is really at the heart of Dadi Janki's power, that she sets, before anything else, she sets an example. She lives in the way that she would like other people to live, to maximize their meditation power, to maximize their connection with God. But first and foremost, she does it herself. And to me, that is at the heart of what Dadi Janki is all about. In leadership circles, there's a term called the big D, distraction. And what it means is that people who don't achieve what they should achieve, or don't achieve their potential, are people who become distracted by things, whatever that might be. This is something that's never happened to Daddy. As far as I'm aware, she's never been distracted, and she has carried her vision and her goal always before her without letting anything else come in the way. So I really, if Daddy has got anything to add on the importance of not being distracted and of being totally dedicated to achieve what she's achieved in whatever field you might want to excel, dedication and not being distracted. So how important are those two things, Daddy?
सुनो बहन, तुम मेरे साथ रही भी नहीं.
You haven't actually lived with me.
कभी सुनो
I think that might be a bit of a
अभी
challenge.
निकल और आज टाइम दिया कैसे तुम्हें बैठ करके ये कैच करके बोल रही हो
But you've managed to capture the essence of what Dadi is, and you're sharing that.
ये कैचिंग पावर कहाँ से आई है तेरे को
Where did you get this ability, this catching power?
बोलो बोलो बाबा से आई है
I spent the last
बोलो
day.
बाबा से आई है
That he wants you to acknowledge that it's come from God.
Well,
मेरे
I
को
don't
इतनी
know. I
खुशी
mean,
हुई है
I
तो
can't-
इंग्लिश फैन हो करके
I've got to have some good material, Daddy, to write about. You know, I can't just
मेरे
write about
दिल की
nothing.
बातों को तो फिर कैच करके सबको सुना रही हो
You've caught the essence and you're sharing it
दादी
with
दादी नहीं
others.
करो वंडरफुल है
God's teachings are wonderful.
But also, Daddy has never got bored. I mean, she's just as enthusiastic now as she was when I first met her.
हिम्मत और उमंग में क्या फर्क है तो बता
What's the difference between courage and
बहुत
enthusiasm?
अच्छी बात
Well, I think courage is one thing. It does show people the way, but enthusiasm is infectious, and I think that is the difference. There's a word now which is overused now, which a lot of manufacturers and companies use. Passionate. We're passionate about yogurt. We're passionate about sandwiches, and what they're trying to convey to the buying public is their enthusiasm for their product. And I think, again, we can say Dadi has always shown a lot of enthusiasm for her product. And that is infectious. That communicates itself to other people. Since I've been talking to people who have been at the heart of the Brahma Kumaris, I've realised how nothing is too small to escape Dadi's attention. I mean, even I think when this centre was being built, there was some question about where to put the radiators, and to put them in one place was going to be much more expensive, but it was going to be a much better decision. And although Dadi wasn't necessarily a radiator expert, she said, let's go for the more expensive option, because in the end that will be the better option. So even for things like that she may not know about, she pays attention to, and I think that's another thing that is, if you like, a secret of how she's managed to make this organisation grow. It's a combination of thinking big plus attention to what some people will consider tiny details. Would you agree with that, Daddy?
मेरी बहन सच्ची दिल है साहब राजी है ये तो जब ये बनना शुरू हुआ तभी हमारे पास 1 लाख पाउंड नहीं था बुला कम से कम 4 मिलियन चाहिए
You're reminding Dadi of the whole story of this house, and it must be that because the heart has been honest, the Lord is pleased, because we needed a place, and so when we started thinking about this, we had just less than £100,000.
थोड़ा वो शुरू किया वहाँ बाबा का फोटो रखा
We started off getting this place, and we
कोई
kept
भाई को कहा या बहन को कहा
a
रोज
meditation room,
मेडिटेशन करो यार
and Dadi arranged for a few
बोले काम
brothers and
करने वाले
sisters
काम कर रहे हैं
come and meditate
आप
here every day.
वहाँ योग करो
And so the workers began the work, but the
ये
meditation started
कैसे
at the same
हाउस
time.
तैयार हुआ मैं साक्षी होकर
And it was amazing the whole way the house happened. I was a detached observer.
इतना हाल बनेगा ये करेगा परंतु जो पहले ये रिसेप्शन ने जो है ना वो बाबा साकार में जब था तो वो सीढ़ी और नीचे मिलना वो इतना पावरफुल था तो हम भी वहाँ उस एरिया को उस सीढ़ी को बड़ा महत्व दिया
The reception area is a very special area in this house, because it reminds me of the place when we were in Karachi, and there was an entrance there and the staircase, and so whenever I see this, it reminds me of those days. And so reception area is a very powerful place.
Well, reception areas are very important as well, because that's people's first impression. I'd like to say thank you for Dadi for answering the questions. And the book, A Century of Service, which is, as I say, the official biography of Dadi, from when she arrived in the West. I haven't really gone very much into the Indian story, because a lot of that's in my other book, Peace and Purity. So it's really how she conquered the West, and I think you'll find it a very interesting story.
When East and West come together, then everything is the best.
East ka, West ka. दुनिया का कोई कोना नहीं रहा है.
Otherwise, East is one place, West is another place, but things come together.
I think we can say that's been achieved.
अभी आप सब शक्ति खींचो. कौन सी शक्ति है?
And so you're sitting on the right and she's on the
जो
left.
लाइट बनाती है, माइट देती है.
But let each one take such power from above. Take that light, that might from God.
इतने लाइट.
So light.
शरीर है.
There's a body, but still light.
मैं हूँ आत्मा, मेरा है परमात्मा.
I am a soul, and it's God who belongs to me.
बाकी ये सब कौन है?
And so who is everyone here?
उसके है, उसके.
They belong to the
मानो
one.
न मानो.
Whether somebody accepts or not, but at some point there's this realization.
भगवान मेरा साथी है.
God is my
वो कहता है
companion.
तुम सब ऐसे रहो.
And he says, just sit comfortably.
Sweet silence में रहो.
In sweet silence.
मन में जो ख्यालात आती है वो देखो. चिंतन ऐसे हो, कोई चिंता नहीं.
Let the thoughts in your mind, the things that you reflect on, also be pure and elevated. Yoga means connection with God, and when there's that connection with the Almighty, you draw power into your life, and as a result of that power, your actions are pure and elevated. I'll share a few thoughts and invite you to join us in that journey inwards.
All those days watching, now you're here, suddenly I see. Standing here, it's all so clear, and at last I see the light, and it's like the sky is new, and it's warm and real and bright, and the world has somehow shifted. All at once, everything is different. Now